All right, this is No Hero. It's the second passage from the North Carolina EOG Grade 7 Reading Release Test questions. So this passage is a short fictional story, and it's probably one of the longer ones you're going to see. So, of course, you should have read it already. You should have done some pre-reading before you jumped into reading it. And so let me highlight for you what I did in my pre-reading to get the most out of this. So first I looked at the title. The title is No Hero, which immediately tells me that the title character, the author, whoever the story is about, either thinks they're not a hero or other people don't consider them a hero. So it makes me think of what situations would someone be in where people might call them a hero, but they're not really, or where someone does something where they know they're not a hero for it. Maybe they do the wrong thing. So that sets that up, and I'm going in expecting there to be an idea about what is heroic. Then in this first part, so in the EOG, when you have a longer passage, it's often taken from a longer work. And so they'll give you this little paragraph of italics where it gives you some important context, and you have to read that closely because otherwise there are some details in the story that just don't make sense. So everyone at the fair thought the thin man was crazy. So that immediately tells me we're going to be at a fair. That's going to be our setting right there. And then the thin man, that's got to be my main character, and they think he's crazy. How could he wrestle with a 386-pound bear? Well, there seems to be the conflict. So a guy is going to wrestle a bear, but a man with hungry children will try almost anything for money. Uh-oh. So we know that his kids are hungry, so probably he's hungry because if he's a good dad, he's made sure his kids have food before he does. And then he's going to do something stupid or crazy for money. But he has a secret up his sleeve. So there's going to be more to the story than what we think. In this story, people call Hester Ichabod Crane, who's a famous character with a tall, thin body. All right, that gives us really important information. In fact, there are some test questions on this passage that you could answer just by reading that paragraph. Not that that's a good idea, but that's how important this paragraph is. All right, and then they're going to do a lot of exposition in these first 4 or 5 paragraphs. So again, I know I need to read it closely. So he's walking away from his town. His crops have failed. His children are in a shack in the hills. And his wife, Molly, says we can't go another day, but he doesn't tell her what he's going to do. So it seems to be a bad idea. And then it says, again, it doesn't seem like he's a bad guy. He's willing to work, but nature is up against him. So the weather killed his crops, and since he can't just make it rain, there's nothing he could do. So we know immediately the author's trying to tell us he's a good guy. He works hard. He did everything right, but still he ended up with this terrible luck and a starving family. And so now his wife is saying we need to do something, and so he's going to walk into town and has this crazy idea that we know involves a fair and wrestling a bear for money. So now that you've read it closely, let's look at question 9. Which statement summarizes the plot of the selection? Now, this is not a plot summary like I've taught you how to write, where we give lots of details and it walks through the whole story. This is a test style summary where it's one sentence only. So let's see which sentence is the best summary. A, Hester was a man who used his prior knowledge of bears to creatively earn money. Now, that is true. We know that he learned how to kind of hug or pet a bear when he was a child, and he uses that to make money, so that seems good so far. Hester lied about his background and unfairly cheated the fairground out of $225. Well, we know that the author is looking on the character positively. That's a very negative answer choice. So we know that that can't be it, because while that is a valid reading of this question, that he lied and cheated the fairground, the author doesn't think he did that, and so that makes it wrong. Hester was desperate, so he foolishly put his life at risk. Now, that is also true, but again, that negative connotation of desperate and foolishly and putting his life at risk, that tells you that that's not quite right, because the author is not negative about this choice. The author makes it very clear from the beginning, this is all he can do. He has tried everything. And then Hester's crops failed because he did not properly care for them. Again, in that first paragraphs, the first 5 or 6 paragraphs, it tells us he did everything, but he can't make it rain. So A must be the best answer. 10. Why does the author include the introduction to the selection? A, to introduce the setting. It does give us some information on setting. It says that it's at the fair, so we'll hold on to that. B, to provide background information about the main character. That seems to be pretty important. So we learn some things about the main character that help us shape who he is in the text. So let's keep that one too. To give specific details about the bear in the wrestling cage. It does not tell us the bear's name. It does tell us how much it weighs, but it doesn't tell us why it's there. So we're going to get rid of that one. And to provide knowledge of what happens to the bear. It also doesn't do that. So it's either to tell us about the setting or provide background information. Now, because it does both, we need to decide which one is better. And in this case, it tells us more about the main character than it does the setting. So we're going to go with providing background information on the main character. Question 11. What do the bright lights of Landsberg represent for Hester King as he leaves his home? So this is him leaving his home, walking into town. And so that's the town. And you can see these bright lights. So if you just think about if you're in his position and you're a starving man trying to feed your family, what would the lights of the city where you are going to find something, what would they represent to you? Probably some kind of opportunity, probably some kind of freedom from starvation. So let's take a look. They represent a dependable person who will lead the way. Nope. So that one, they don't represent a person because he's not going to look for a person. He's going to the fair to look for this opportunity. They represent a chance to seek safe entertainment. He's not looking to entertain anyone or be entertained. He is looking for food for his family or money for food. They represent a risky experience that awaits him. That is true. Let's look at the last one. They represent an opportunity to solve a problem. Now, if I look at those 2 answer choices, one is more positive, one is more negative. I know the author thinks positively of the main character, so I'm going to say that C is a little bit too negative to be correct. So the answer would be D. All right, question 12 is a straight up recall question. It is said almost directly. What is the reason that Hester left without telling Molly where he was going? A, Molly would want to come along too. Nope. Molly would be afraid of the danger. That seems right. Molly would want him to get a job. Molly knows he's doing everything he can. And last, Molly would tell him to take the kids with him. Nope. So it would be the danger. So if she knew what he was going to do, she'd be afraid of the danger because, of course she would. He's going to wrestle a bear. All right, question 13. What does the phrase clinched with old Bruin mean in paragraph 49? Now, of course, you know my strategy, which is if it tells you a specific paragraph, you go back to the paragraph. So let's bring the paragraph in. All right, so there's the paragraph. I was clinched with old Bruin again. I let my hands fall gently up and down his back. Bruin was settling down. My chin rested on his head. So again, look at the positive and the negative connotations of that paragraph. That paragraph is talking about something that is positive, right? He let his hands fall gently. He's settling down. His chin rested. There's no violent language. So we know that it's got to be something positive. So let's look. Hester and the bear were helping each other. Okay, well, that is a positive thing. So let's hold on to that. B, Hester and the bear were hurting each other. Nope, definitely not. Hester and the bear were hitting each other. Again, very negative. Let's get rid of it. Hester and the bear were hugging each other. All right, so there has to be one of those that's better. Is he hugging or are they helping each other? Well, the bear isn't doing anything to help him. In fact, in the previous paragraph, the bear hits him and he sees stars. So it can't be that they were helping each other. They were hugging each other. All right, and then how does Hester defeat Bruin in the cage? A, he injures the animal so it cannot fight. Nope, he does not hurt the animal at all. This is, again, just a straight up, like, did you read the passage? Did you understand it? He uses information that he learned as a child. That seems right. He pretends to be asleep and he's left alone. He doesn't do that. And he frightens the animal because he yells at it. He also doesn't do that. So B, he uses information he learned as a child. That is directly from the text where it talks about him saying, he had a secret. He, as a kid, had learned how to hug a bear and rub its belly and back, and that makes it calm down. So that is the answer. All right, this one is probably the most complex question, or the ones that students struggle with the most on these kinds of questions, on these kinds of tests, rather. How does the setting of the selection shape the plot? So I always recommend that you think about this generally first. So if you think about a story, how does the setting shape the plot? So think about Harry Potter. How does him going to a magical school away from the family he grew up with that was abusive shape the plot? How does that abusive home he starts off in shape who he is? So think about how a place a person is shape how they are as a person. What does it do for the story? So how does the setting of the selection, how does him going to the fair to try and help his family by doing this impossible, insane thing, how does that shape the plot? So A, the country fair provides the arena for the conflict and the resolution. That seems right so far. Let's hold on to that. The countryside provides the suspense for the characters and the action. The countryside doesn't build any suspense. The countryside is what he's leaving. The countryside is the push. If it said something like the countryside is the inciting incident that gets him to leave and go to the fair, we might consider it. But it does not provide suspense. What builds suspense is characters not knowing what's going to happen next, authors giving hints about what's going to happen, about the character seeing something but not really understanding what's going on. Those are the kinds of things that build suspense, not countrysides. The country fair sets up the details that foreshadow the main problem. Well, we learned the main problem in the first paragraph, so there's not much foreshadowing. There is a little bit in this passage. We don't really get an idea of what he's doing with the bear until the very end, but it's not there to foreshadow anything. And the countryside represents the emotional reactions felt by the characters. That is often true in stories, but in this case, it's not like he feels calm and then he goes to the city and he feels like energetic because of the fair. It has nothing to do. The countryside and the fair have nothing to do with his emotional state. So the country fair provides the arena for the conflict and the resolution. That is the best answer. So make sure you mark all of the answers on your corrections form with the reason why they are correct, and I will see you in the next passage.